Okay, welcome back, everyone. We're going to start this session with our meditation. So if you want to get yourself into a good meditation posture, we'll start with that. And if you have a mala, go ahead and grab your mala as well. Okay, starting with refuge. Sanghe chudam sogi chunam lai janchu padudani kapsuchi dagi jin sogi pe sonam ki rola penche sanghe drupa sho sanghe chudam sogi chunam la janchu padudani kapsuchi dagi chunyen ki pe sonam ki Rola penche sange drupa sho sange churon soge chunam la janchu paru dani kapsuchi dagi chunyengi pe sonam ki rola penche sange drupa sho. So thinking very strongly, I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my merits from giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. Just letting that motivation sink in for both the practice and the session at large. And then visualize about 4 inches above your head, an open white lotus upon which is a moon disk. Vajrasattva is seated upon this. His holy body is translucent white and adorned with the 6 ornaments and clothes of celestial silks. In his right hand is a Vajra, symbolic of great bliss. In his left is a bell, symbolic of the wisdom of emptiness. The Vajra and bell together signify his attainment of the enlightened state, the inseparable unity of the wisdom and form bodies. At his heart is a moon disk with the seed syllable hum at its center and letters of the Vajrasattva 100-syllable mantra standing clockwise around its edge. And so with awareness of Vajrasattva above your crown, the negative karma I've accumulated from beginningless time is as extensive as the ocean. Although I know that each negative action leads to countless eons of suffering, it seems that I'm constantly striving to create nothing but negative actions. Even though I try to avoid non-virtue and practice positive acts, day and night without respite, negativities and ethical downfalls come to me like rainfall. I lack the ability to purify these faults so that no trace of them remains. With these negative imprints in my mind, death will come, suddenly and without warning. I could find myself falling to an unfortunate rebirth. My closest friend from a past life could be suffering there even now. I may be tormented there myself by this time next year. What can I do? Please, Vajrasattva, with your great compassion, guide me from such misery. So we reflect on our negative actions of body, speech, and mind, and generate sincere regret without guilt or identification, taking responsibility and confessing before Vajrasattva's compassionate gaze. So first we start with negative actions done with the body. So today and in the past, what have my actions been like related to killing? And any carelessness with life as well. Spending a moment with that. and generating the power of regret related to stealing, taking what hasn't been freely offered, taking others' possessions for granted even. Just spending a moment. And then looking at any actions of sexual misconduct, taking someone's recognized partner or cheating on your own, any harmful use of your sexuality in general, spending a moment with that. And since we're emphasizing purifying the body in this session, also think about what your body tells you about what's happening in your mind. Just spend a moment reflecting on how does your body get when it's under the influence of anger, attachment, ignorance, etc. Maybe it's your relationship towards consumption of food or drink or entertainment. Maybe when afflictions are very strongly present, the body becomes slow and lethargic, or maybe it becomes speedy. Just investigate. And so think all of these actions that I remember, as well as any that I don't remember, I lay them bare before Vajrasattva's compassionate gaze. May I not continue these faults. And shift to checking about harmful actions of speech. A little bit more swiftly, but still with deep contemplation. Check in about your actions of lying, divisive speech, harsh speech, and idle gossip. Seeing a fault to be a fault. Today, in the past. All these I remember, and anything similar that I don't remember, I lay bare before Vajrasattva's compassionate gaze. And looking at non-virtues of mind, covetousness, ill will, wrong views. What has been constant or often in my mind? What comes and goes? Even just using today as an example, what are the negative actions of mind? Thinking all these I remember, and anything similar that I haven't remembered, all of it I lay bare before Vajrasattva's compassionate gaze. And from the whom at Vajrasattva's heart, light radiates in all directions, requesting the Buddhas to bestow their blessings. They accept the request and send white rays of light and nectar, the essence of which is the knowledge of their body, speech, and mind. The light and nectar absorb into the hum and letters of the mantra at Vajrasattva's heart. They fill his whole body completely, enhancing the magnificence of his appearance and increasing the brilliance of the mantra at his heart, until it shines with the light of 100,000 moons, reflected by snowy mountains. And while we recite the mantra, think that rays of white light and nectar stream continuously from the hum and mantra at Vajrasattva's heart. They flow down through the crown of your head, fill every cell of your body and mind with infinite bliss. First, we purify the body. So think that your disturbing attitudes and negativities in general, particularly those of body, take the form of black ink, flushed out by the white nectar light. Sickness takes the form of pus and blood, flushed out by the white nectar light. Afflictions caused by spirits appear in the form of scorpions, snakes, frogs, and crabs, flushed out by the white nectar light. Flushed out by the light and nectar, they all leave your body through the lower openings like filthy liquid flowing from a drain pipe. Holding awareness of that visualization, we add the mantra 7 times, purifying the body of killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Deno Bodhishtadiro Me Bhava Sutokaya Me Bhava Supokaya Me Bhava Anurakto Me Bhava Sawasiddhi Me Prayatsa Sawakama Sutsa Me Siddham Shriyam Kuruhum Ha 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 Ho Bhagav Sawatata Gata Vajramame Mutsa Vajrabhava Mahasamaya Sattva Ahum Pe Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Deno Bodhishtadiro Me Bhava Sudokaya Me Bhava Supokaya Me Bhava Anarakta Me Bhava Sawasiddhi Me Prayatsa Sawakama Sutta Me Siddham Shriyam Kuruhum Ha 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 Ho Bhagav Sawatata Gata Vajramame Mutsa Vajrabhava Mahasamaya Sattva Ahum Pe Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Deno Bodhishtadiro Me Bhava Sudokaya Me Bhava Supokaya Me Bhava Anarakto Me Bhava Sawasiddhi Me Prayatsa Sawakama Sutta Me Siddham Shriyam Kuruhum Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sawatata Gata Vajramame Mutsa Vajrabhava Mahasamaya Sattva Ahum Pe Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Deno Bodhishtadiro Me Bhava Sutokaya Me Bhava Supokaya Me Bhava Anarakto Me Bhava Sawasiddhi Me Prayatsa Sawakama Sutta Me Siddham Shriyam Kuruhum Ha 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 Ho Bhagav Sawatata Gata Vajramame Mutsa Vajrabhava Mahasamaya Sattva Ahum Pe Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Deno Bodhishtadiro Me Bhava Sutokaya Me Bhava Supokaya Me Bhava Anarakto Me Bhava Sawasiddhi Me Prayatsa Sawakama Sutta Me Siddham Shriyam Kuruhum Ha 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 Ho Bhagav Sawatata Gata Vajramame Vajrabhava Mahasamaya Sattva Ahum Pe Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Deno Bodhishtadiro Me Bhava Sudokaya Me Bhava Supokaya Me Bhava Anarakto Me Bhava Sawasiddhi Me Prayatsa Sawakama Sutta Me Siddham Shriyam Kuruhum Ha 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 Ho Bhagav Sawatata Gata Vajramame Mutsa Vajrabhava Mahasamaya Sattva Ahum Pe Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Deno Bodhishtadiro Me Bhava Sudokaya Me Bhava Supokaya Me Bhava Anarakto Me Bhava Sawasiddhi Me Prayatsa Sawakama Sutta Me Siddham Shriyam Kuruhum Ha 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 Ho Bhagav Sawatata Gata Vajramame Mutsa Vajrabhava Mahasamaya Sattva Ahum Pe Feel completely empty of these problems and negativities. They no longer exist anywhere. And then we purify the speech. Your disturbing attitudes and the imprints of negativities of speech take the form of liquid tar. The light and nectar fill your body as water fills a dirty glass. The negativities, like dirt, rise to the top and flow out through the upper openings of your body, your eyes, ears, mouth, nose, etc. Stabilize that visualization, purifying lying, divisiveness, harsh speech, and idle gossip. Adding the mantra. Vajrasattva samaya manupalaya Vajrasattva deno padishna deno me bhava Sudokaya me bhava Supokaya me bhava Anorakto me bhava Sawa siddhi me prayatsa sawa kama sutsa me Siddham shriyam kuruhum ha 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 ho bhagav Sawa tata gata vajramami mutsa vajra bhava mahasamaya sattva ahum pe Om Vajrasattva samaya manupalaya Vajrasattva deno padishna deno me bhava Sutokaya me bhava Supokaya me bhava Anarakto me bhava Sawa siddhi me prayatsa sawa kama sutsa me Siddham shriyam kuruhum ha 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 ho bhagav Sawa tata gata vajramame mutsa vajra bhava mahasamaya sattva ahum pe Om Vajrasattva samaya manupalaya Vajrasattva deno padishna deno me bhava Sudokaya me bhava Supokaya me bhava Anarakto me bhava Sawa siddhi me prayatsa sawa kama sutsa me Siddham shriyam kuruhum ha 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 ho bhagav Sawa tata gata vajramame mutsa vajra bhava mahasamaya sattva ahum pe Om Vajrasattva samaya manupalaya Vajrasattva deno padishna deno me bhava Sudokaya me bhava Supokaya me bhava Anarakto me bhava Sawa siddhi me prayatsa sawa kama sutsa me Siddham shriyam kuruhum ha 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 ho bhagavan Sawa tata gata vajramame mutsa vajra bhava mahasamaya sattva ahum pe Om Vajrasattva samaya manupalaya Vajrasattva deno padishna deno me bhava Sudokaya me bhava Supokaya me bhava Anarakto me bhava Sawa siddhi me prayatsa sawa kama sutsa me Siddham shriyam kuruhum ha 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 ho bhagav Sawa tata gata vajramame mutsa vajra bhava mahasamaya sattva ahum pe Om Vajrasattva samaya manupalaya Vajrasattva deno padishna deno me bhava Sudokaya me bhava Supokaya me bhava Anarakto me bhava Sawa siddhi me prayatsa sawa kama sutsa me Siddham shriyam kuruhum ha 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 ho bhagav Sawa tata gata vajramame mutsa vajra bhava mahasamaya sattva ahum pe Om Vajrasattva samaya manupalaya Vajrasattva deno padishna deno me bhava Sudokaya me bhava Supokaya me bhava Anarakto me bhava Sawa siddhi me prayatsa sawa kama sutsa me Siddham shriyam kuruhum ha 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 ho bhagavan Sawa tata gata vajramame mutsa vajra bhava mahasamaya sattva ahum pe And feel completely empty of these problems and negativities. They no longer exist anywhere. And then think your disturbing attitudes and imprints of mental activities appear as darkness at your heart. As you recite the mantra, immeasurable and unimaginably powerful rays of white light and nectar pour down from Vajrasattva's heart and penetrate the crown of your head. When struck by the forceful stream of light and nectar, the darkness instantly vanishes. It is like turning on a light in a room. The darkness does not go anywhere, it simply ceases to exist. And you begin to feel that you're completely empty of all these problems. They are non-existent. And so 7 more. Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Deno Bodhishta Dito Me Bhawa Sudokaya Me Bhawa Supokaya Me Bhawa Anarakta Me Bhawa Sawasiri Me Prayata Sawa Kama Sutta Me Siddham Shriyam Kuruhum Ha 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 Ho Bhagawan Sawa Tata Gata Vajrama Me Mutsa Vajra Bhawa Mahasamaya Sattva Ahum Pe Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Deno Bodhishta Dito Me Bhawa Sudokaya Me Bhawa Supokaya Me Bhawa Anarakta Me Bhawa Sawasiri Me Prayata Sawa Kama Sutta Me Siddham Shriyam Kuruhum Ha 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 Ho Bhagawan Sawa Tata Gata Vajrama Me Mutsa Vajra Bhawa Mahasamaya Sattva Ahum Pe Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Deno Bodhishta Dito Me Bhawa Sudokaya Me Bhawa Supokaya Me Bhawa Anarakta Me Bhawa Sawasiri Me Prayata Sawa Kama Sutta Me Siddham Shriyam Kuruhum Ha 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 Ho Bhagav Sawa Tata Gata Vajrama Me Mutsa Vajra Bhawa Mahasamaya Sattva Ahum Pe Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Deno Bodhishta Dito Me Bhawa Sudokaya Me Bhawa Supokaya Me Bhawa Anarakta Me Bhawa Sawasiri Me Prayata Sawa Kama Sutta Me Siddham Shriyam Kuruhum Ha 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 Ho Bhagav Sawa Tata Gata Vajrama Me Mutsa Vajra Bhawa Mahasamaya Sattva Ahum Pe Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Deno Bodhishta Dito Me Bhawa Sudokaya Me Bhawa Supokaya Me Bhawa Anarakta Me Bhawa Sawasiri Me Prayata Sawa Kama Sutta Me Siddham Shriyam Kuruhum Ha 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 Ho Bhagav Sawa Tata Gata Vajrama Me Mutsa Vajra Bhawa Mahasamaya Sattva Ahum Pe Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Deno Bodhishta Dito Me Bhawa Sudokaya Me Bhawa Supokaya Me Bhawa Anarakta Me Bhawa Sawasiri Me Prayata Sawa Kama Sutta Me Siddham Shriyam Kuruhum Ha 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 Ho Bhagawan Sawa Tata Gata Vajrama Me Mutsa Vajra Bhawa Mahasamaya Sattva Ahum Pe Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Deno Bodhishta Dito Me Bhawa Sudokaya Me Bhawa Supokaya Me Bhawa Anarakta Me Bhawa Sawasiri Me Prayata Sawa Kama Sutta Me Siddham Shriyam Kuruhum Ha 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 Ho Bhagawan Sawa Tata Gata Vajrama Me Mutsa Vajra Bhawa Mahasamaya Sattva Ahum Pe and feel that you're completely empty of all these problems. They are non-existent. And Vajrasattva is extremely pleased and says, "My spiritual child of the essence, all your negativities, obscurations, and degenerated vows have now been completely purified. And generate a strong promise never to commit those actions from which you can easily abstain, and to not commit for a day, an hour, or at least a few seconds, those negative actions from which you find difficult to abstain." Imagine that you're saying to Vajrasattva, "I shall not create these negative actions from now until," and fill in a blank. Practical, time-specific, body, speech, mind. You can also reinforce those promises you've already made, repeating them to yourself, strengthening them. With delight, Vajrasattva melts into light and dissolves into you. Your body, speech, and mind become inseparably one with Vajrasattva's holy body, speech, and mind. Concentrate on this. In emptiness, there is no I, creator of negative karma. There is no action of creating negative karma. There is no negative karma created. And with this awareness of emptiness, dedicate the merits. Due to this merit, may I soon attain the enlightened state of Vajrasattva, so that I may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. And you can relax your attention. Okay. So when you're doing a retreat setting like this, it's nice to emphasize one bit and then do the rest abbreviated, and then the next session emphasize a different bit. So today we're focusing the content mostly on the 35 Buddhas. Tomorrow we'll focus the content mostly on Vajrasattva. So we'll make sure we cover the meaning of the mantra and the symbolism of Vajrasattva and things like that tomorrow. I think that you're all familiar with the 4 opponent powers, but if you're not, please ask any questions you might have about those kind of ingredients we need for purification. We need refuge, regret, remedy, resolve, and that's what makes the seeds unable to bear the fruit of suffering. And that's a continuous premise throughout all purification practices in Tibetan Buddhism. Theoretically, if you realize emptiness, then that becomes a supercharged, very effective, swift way to purify. But before we've realized emptiness, the 4 opponent powers are what are going to help us out. So did you need to clarify that at all, or are you guys basically oriented to those 4? Yeah, good. Okay. All right, so we'll go into a few more of the 35 Buddhas. So if you wanted to shift position into, class mode as opposed to meditation mode, or just stretch or whatever you need to do, feel free to shift position if that's helpful. Okay, so more 35 Buddhas, here we go. So just to kind of get us excited or enthusiastic, just some stuff about why recite the names. And so there's 2 main texts that explain the benefits of prostrating to each of the 35 confession Buddhas. One is by Lama Atisha, and the other is by Gyaltsab, Lama Tsongkhapa's disciple. There's also another text by Nulcho Dhammapadra that explains a little differently. But with Lama Tupa Chumdende, That's the Tibetan. It says that the Lama is the founder of the present Buddha Dharma, the one who has been constantly guiding us from beginningless rebirths. For Chomdende, Chom means having destroyed. So he's destroyed the delusions. I say he because we're talking about Shakyamuni Buddha. But if we were talking about Tara, it's she. Unlike English, Tibetan does not have this distinction. Dende means having all the qualifications and transcended the world. So when you say Lama at the very beginning, you reinforce that meaning of the ultimate guru. Everything is that quality. The meaning of just that first word Lama is unimaginable. It is like the limitless sky. Everything refers to that. When you get ready to recite Lama Tobe Chomdende, you can first think a little bit about the guru, what the Lama means, and then recite it. In that way, it becomes unbelievably rich. So in those early bits where we're saying some Sanskrit, and then we're saying some Tibetan, and then we're saying refuge and connecting with Shakyamuni Buddha, it's good to think that that's all one in essence with the ultimate guru. So we're up to the second row. So we're in the second row where everybody is in the aspect of Vajrachana, who is the head of the Tathagata family, which purifies the form aggregate and ignorance, and then develops Dharmadhatu wisdom. Dharmadhatu wisdom is sometimes called, like the spacious clarity wisdom. It's that one. And remembering that sometimes the Tathagata family and the Vajra family have aspects that are interchangeable or swapped, depending on the tradition, but I'm going with the way it's normally explained in our tradition. So Vajrachana is the white one. So the first one is jewel moonlight. And jewel moonlight purifies 8,000 eons of negative karma of the mind. It purifies having criticized the Arya Sangha. Nilchu Dharmabhadra says that all the negative karmas collected with the mind are purified. And then meaningful to see purifies 1,000 eons of negative karma and the 5 immediate negativities, killing your father, mother, and arhat, or so forth, which usually lead to immediately being reborn in the lowest hell after death without any intervening life. So even if you've committed one of these heavy negative karmas, it's purified by reciting the name of meaningful to see. And jewel moon, the 5 immediate negativities are purified with this one, particularly if you've killed your father. So possibly we've not killed our father in this life, but certainly we have killed our father in previous lives. So we can think that we're purifying all of that. Stainless one is purifying the near immediate negativities. The preliminary practice of prostrations also mentions that it purifies negative karma collected from stepping over the shadow of a stupa, or those things that are under the heading of showing disrespect to the Dharma or showing disrespect to holy objects or representations of the Dharma. Not that these things are ever going to give up on us or anything like that. It's about the obstacles it creates in our own mind by having that kind of disrespect. And then bestowed with courage, from the 5 immediate negativities, bestowed with courage purifies the karma of having killed an arhat. It also purifies negative karmas collected through becoming angry. So we know that to purify negative karma, we need the 4 opponent powers. But good karma can also be destroyed, right? Good karma can be destroyed by anger. So we want to particularly be on top of anger in our spiritual path and be looking at ways to purify it. Pure one purifies the negative karma collected through attachment. So according to Nilchu Dhamabhadra, the negative karma of malevolently causing a Buddha to bleed is also purified. And bestowed with purity, 10,000 eons of negative karma are purified, as well as the non-virtue of causing disunity amongst the Sangha. So you'll notice with these that there's like some repeat and some overlap. Yeah, some purify the same things, some purify the same things plus something kind of unique. Some of them are in nice, tidy alignment with the Buddha family that they're representing, obviously purifying ignorance. Some of them ignorance and also attachment. So it's not like we want to get kind of tight and fixed about these. These are all beings that existed as regular people just like us that developed their minds. And some of them particularly specialized in one thing or particularly specialized in a number of things. And the main thing is to kind of connect to the name and the image and kind of have an openness about it's going to purify any number of things, but this list of beings is significant. And the Buddha has said that this list of beings is significant. It's not a finite list, right? It's not like there are only 35 Buddhas that purify, but these particular ones are very efficient for us to really get rid of obstacles so that we can go on to develop realizations, not just to not suffer. Yeah, it's like we don't want to suffer, we don't want to hurt anyone, but we also want to have realizations and develop on the path. And these ones are very good for clearing obstacles. So that white row, any thoughts or questions about those guys? Okay, so we'll do just a brief journal exercise now related to ignorance. And so once again, just take a minute and ask yourself the deep dive, do the deep dive into your own personal habits of ignorance and how does it manifest. And so I put it in the chat, but spending 20 minutes on that. Okay. So ignorance. Ignorance is sometimes the hardest one to catch, I think, because anger is fiery and attachment is hungry and pride is all lofty and jealousy is all comparison-y, but ignorance is kind of hard to catch and it's so pervasive. Did you find there was any ways you could kind of capture that's an obvious kind of ignorant way?
For me, it all boils down to, and I wrote a full page, it all boils down to just a dullness, wanting to withdraw, a forgetfulness.
Yep, like vague. Yeah, totally that. Yeah. Do you feel it in your body sometimes too? There's like maybe a heaviness or just kind of a floppiness or something, or a stiffness, maybe, depends.
Sleepiness.
Sleepy, yeah, that's always a good indicator if you're sleepy but you know that you've had enough sleep. Other things that came up for you for ignorance, or ways that you've maybe indulged ignorance, or times when you let yourself be ignorant, anything around that genre?
I found sometimes I'm moving too quickly, actually, and I can tell I'm missing things and I'm not getting the full picture, or I'm probably missing something I don't want to hear about the other person, but I'm still going because I've got my point. It's almost, I want to say, if we use like a house metaphor, like I'm in one room and I know something's going on in the other room, but I'm not stopping to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, you could do that speediness. Yeah, I know what you mean. And it's sort of disassociated speediness. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. This feeling of I'm not responsible, kind of this escaping kind of into the dullness, I'm not responsible.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it's just sort of a moving away from responsibility. Yeah, avoidance, that kind of vibe. Yeah, the avoidance. Yeah, how else does it manifest for you guys, the ignorance? Leanne, yeah, go ahead.
When I'm kind of arrogant and just selfish, just ignorant.
Just normal every day. Yeah,
not thinking of others, not when I'm more narrow and not open to others. Yeah,
I know what you mean. Yeah, it's an interesting one to pin down. It can be kind of listless, listless, sort of just drifting. It can also be a little bit like, I can't be bothered, I can't be bothered to help anyone. I can't be bothered even to clean my own house or rake my own leaves, or I can't be bothered. I can't be bothered. And maybe it's kind of just like a low hum in the back of your mind, just kind of static, or maybe it's very busy and very speedy, but with nonsense, half remembered things you read in magazines, half remembered songs, a montage of images, just a jumble. It's just a big jumble of thoughts and sounds and words. So the ignorant one, it's less painful, I guess, than some of the other ones. And so it is harder to catch. But if you can kind of be aware of what its affect is, and how does it inform your speech? How does it inform your physicality? That can be an interesting exploration too. Do you find that there's an obvious kind of way your speech gets when you're under the influence of ignorance?
So mine actually ended up all channeling towards pain. So with the verbal, it ended up in the pain of hurting others. And with the physical, it became pain in my own body. And then with the mental, it became rumination. So an absence of holding space with people and just panicking and worrying and going over and over things. But yeah, especially with the verbal, that, turned out to be something that would hurt other people without intention necessarily, but that's how I can sometimes become aware of it, to see that it's caused pain in someone else and then self-reflect.
Yeah, that's a really good one, because it's not like we're plotting to hurt people. We don't like plan out, here's how I'll hurt people today, but we do wind up hurting people, and it often is under the influence of ignorance. We're just careless. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Others.
I was thinking too that for me, it's about selfishness, about putting the I first, and not feeling grateful enough to others for their input. And also, like, mentally, it's not remembering the Dharma all the time. Like, what did I put down? Something like not thinking and practicing it enough. I can't really say it. They're applying the in-depths of the in-depth teachings to every moment of every day. So, like changing from moment to moment to moment, and using the application to guide my speech and my body language, and all those things that come under that.
Yeah, definitely. Sometimes it's just like a short-sightedness too, like a lack of perspective, lack of big picture. You're kind of trapped in your one experience, just yourself or just today. And there's just kind of a narrowness of vision, which of course means that then small things seem like a really big deal, and things that are about you seem like a really big deal. Whereas when you have a Dharma perspective, or even just a wider view of life, then things are in the right proportion, and because they're put in their right perspective and context. So that's something that ignorance can do, is just make things really narrow. Yeah, so now we'll look at the next row. So now we're in the third row, and everybody there is in the aspect of Ratnasambhava, the head of the jewel family, and they purify the feeling aggregate and pride, and then develop the wisdom of equality. So the first one is water god, and Tathagata, deity of the water god, purifies, water god purifies 1,000 eons of negative karma, as well as the near immediate negativity of defiling your mother or a female arhat. So there's these list of 5 heavy negative karmas, and then the like immediate ones that are so heavy that your very next rebirth is reborn in hell realm. And then there's the near immediate negativities, which are almost as bad. And so anyway, that's a list you can look at another time. They're mostly things a nice regular person wouldn't do, but you have done them just eons ago, perhaps, or even the previous few lifetimes ago. So assume you've done all these things and are very happy to be purifying all these things, even if in this life you haven't done them. Then deity of the water god, is according to Nultu Dhammabhadra, the negative karma of killing a bodhisattva is purified, as well as 5,000 eons of negative karma. And glorious goodness purifies 5,000 eons of negative karma, as well as the negative karma of having killed the Vajramaster. The term used in the text is lopon, which means guru or preceptor, but it looks like Lama Zopa Rinpoche is glossing it as could also be the Vajramaster. So you can imagine how heavy that karma would have been if we've ever done that in the past. And we probably have. So glorious goodness kindly did prayers and practice related to helping us purify that. Glorious sandalwood purifies 7,000 eons of negative karma, as well as having taken money, food, or offerings given to the Sangha. If you've harmed the Sangha by taking away what brings them together, even those negative karmas are purified. So that's a really powerful one to have in our tool belt. Infinite splendor purifies 7 eons of negative karma, as well as the negative karma of having destroyed stupas. So destroying holy objects is one of those fairly heavy negative karmas. Again, not because from their own side they are these magical things, it's because of the minds that created them. They become very powerful things, and then the impact they have on the minds of others is incredibly powerful. So if you're taking away a very strong condition for people to purify their minds, that's very heavy. So hence we have this one to help us purify that. Then glorious light purifies 7 eons of negative karma, as well as the negative karma collected through anger. You must relate this to your own life and see how often you get angry and how easy it is to do so. However, no matter how destructive anger is, by reciting the name of glorious light, you can purify all the negative karma you have created through anger. And then the last one in this row is sorrowless glory. And with sorrowless glory, the negative karma collected through attachment is purified. Gyaltsab Je, Lama Tsongkhapa's older disciple, and Dhammabhadra both mention that. So even though they're in the aspect of Ratnasambhava and particularly purify pride, some also purify anger, some also purify attachment, similar as the earlier ones. So now we'll just do a brief one, because pride and jealousy are of a similar type. We'll do shorter journals for pride and for jealousy. So let's just do 15 minutes and or maybe even just 10. Yeah, anyway, 10, 15 minutes on pride, physically, verbally, and mentally. How does your own personal expression of pride manifest? And I'll give you a little heads up when we're near the end, and you can wrap up your thought. And wrapping up your thought. So pride, pride, which is not confidence. We're not talking about confidence. Confidence is good. Keep the confidence. Pride, that attitude that is looking down on others. Yeah, that's puffed up, that is looking down and is feeling better than or superior to. Kind of, how is that like for you as an individual? So, when we're looking at pride, I think it's cringy to look at. It's a little embarrassing to look at. And it's also a little different because in our culture, sometimes pride is lauded as a good thing, that it somehow helps with ambition or progress or whatever sort of associations you have with pride, or you mix the idea of pride with the idea of dignity. And you can have plenty of dignity and plenty of self-confidence. Get rid of the pride, because the pride is saying I'm special, other, better, superior, and that is not true and it is not useful. So the way it manifests is really interesting to explore. Sometimes we don't notice how insidious pride is, but it can be that one where you feel like No one's really good enough to be your friend, so you don't want to associate with certain people because they're a little bit like not woke enough or not intelligent enough or not, I don't know, kind of together enough or something to be around you or something. And then what winds up happening is that then you're isolated and alone because no one is sort of good enough to be your friend. But you kind of have this weird superiority that makes you isolated or alienated. Yeah, or somehow feels like you diminish yourself by being around lowly people or something yucky like that can happen with pride. It can happen, I think, easily, at least for me, it can happen with like fringe relatives who are, maybe less on top of world news and social issues or something, and they are, maybe a little bit ignorant about some things, and I might say, oh, we just don't have anything in common. But what I'm really saying is, right? There's something pride there and it's yucky and it's no good. Because of course there's a million things they know that I have no idea about. They just value different things, but it's not like a competition, and it's just about kind of having enough objectivity to see that we choose what is important to us. Things aren't important in and of themselves from their own side. We've decided what to sort of draw a frame around and say this is to be emphasized, and then we think it's self-evident. For them, like understanding the mechanisms of various off-road vehicles, very important. I don't have a four-wheeler. I will never have a four-wheeler, but they really know how they work, and that is important to them, right? But, they're also often the kind of people that if I was destitute, down and out, everyone had abandoned me, I could just knock on their door at 2 o'clock in the morning and say, hey, can I sleep on your couch? And they'd let me in, no questions asked. Like, how dare I judge them? Like, how dare I think I'm better than them? Am I that accommodating? I want to think so, but would I be? I don't know. So it's really remembering that everyone has something of value, something to teach us, and something we can learn from, and really managing that tendency to need to like position and reposition and somehow get into a superior role with folks. It feels like it's safety, but it's really isolation. Yeah, and it really is just alienation and makes you superstitious or suspicious or just feel not part of the human race. The first problem with pride is to you. You're all alone with pride. Yeah, and often it feeds depression because you have this idea of yourself and how you are on your best day, and you don't measure up to your best day often enough, so then you think you're horrible. So your thwarted pride turns into self-loathing. If you saw yourself as you actually were, as opposed to the inflated version, then you wouldn't be disappointed all the time. You'd be like, yeah, that's where I am. Perfectly fine. Makes sense given its context. Do you know what I mean? So pride is really insidious, and very polite, very kind people still might have a great deal of pride, and it's worth really investigating what is it like for you. Did you have any interesting little insights about kind of what's it like physically or verbally, or even just the words in your head when pride is driving the bus?
Sorry, we have a two-step process to turn on the microphone.
No
so the kind of related to this, the opposite side of it is when people explain things to me that I know, I think that's pride too. It's like, oh, why are you explaining that? And so it's my reaction to that. Is that pride as well?
Totally. Yeah. Do you know who I am?
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's a really good one. Yeah. I mean, there's the like common human experience of when someone is condescending and patronizing, and we don't like that, and that's rude and that's disrespectful from their side. But if it lands, it's because of our pride. If we don't have pride manifest, we just think, oh, that's embarrassing for them. Poor thing, but if we have pride, then it's got somewhere to land, and we feel so like affronted, like as if everyone has a resume of all of our life's work and accomplishments, and they're like, oh wait, you already know that, sorry, I won't tell you, like why would they know? But yeah, pride is the one that gets affronted. Yeah, other ways it manifests. It's a sneaky.
Something that touched me when I was thinking about it, and I'm hoping that if I can remember these same words, it will help me in future, is that when I'm thinking ill of others, I'm not holding them softly and with tenderness. And for me, that those words and that thought just seem so impactful to me.
Yeah, there's a carefulness that comes with respect. Yeah. Sometimes when I think about what does compassion feel like on the receiving end, if someone's compassionate to you, it feels like respect. Yeah, it feels like holding them, tenderly, carefully, but respectfully. It's kind of how it lands. Compassion. They're holding all of your suffering, but they're not putting you down because of it. Yeah. It's good food for thought. So we'll have a little break, and then we'll come back. So let's just briefly dedicate. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that is not arisen arise and grow. May that which has arisen not diminish, but increase more and more. May the precious view of emptiness that is not arisen arise and grow. And may that which has arisen not diminish, but increase more and more. Okay. So the next session is at 4:30 in an hour. See you then.